It's so crazy. I feel like summer happened so slowly and then so quickly. Like a week ago, these trees were not green, and now they're beautiful, and the sun is warm, and there's nothing else I could possibly want except for the fact I started draft 3 of my thriller novel, and so far, not to jinx anything, but it's going pretty good. So I have a lot to catch you up on. But first, we're gonna make a cup of tea. Hello and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Josie and this is my writing channel where I am currently trying to write a mountaineering revenge thriller novel. I started the first draft back in, what was it? I think I started just before November last year of 2024, and we have been making really good progress. Draft 1 was basically get the story down in some form. Draft 2 was all about the big developmental changes, but thankfully I'd outlined so well that there wasn't too much for me to do. And draft 3 is really just about fine-tuning the language. So taking it chapter by chapter and really making sure that chapter has a purpose, that it has an arc, that it finishes with like a good cliffhanger. Like I'm not talking about like literally someone falling off a cliff, but just like a nugget of information, a conflict that's come up, something to anticipate, to drag you to the next chapter. So I'm kind of considering this more as like a line level edit because the story's not changing. What's changing is how I'm writing about the story. During the first draft, we really tracked the word count as it went up. During the second draft, we didn't really care about word count or anything like that, or tracking anything. But during the third draft, we are going to be tracking chapters. So I've written out my 42 chapters, and I've already finished the first 2, so I'm going to go ahead and color those in when I get the chance. And we're going to keep track of it this way. Because in the past, when I've gotten to this stage, I've jumped around a lot more. Like I've used like one of those randomization things online to go to random chapters, so that way I was less focused on the story and more focused on the word choice and try to make that chapter as strong as possible. Because I will admit, my attention to detail for the first chunk of chapters for Act 1 is usually really good. And then by the end, I'm always like so excited to get to the end that I feel like my quality decreases. I've gone back and forth about whether or not I want to do that again for this one, but I really do think I need a little bit more continuity for this round of revision than I have in the past. So for that reason, I'm gonna go in order. At least for now. I really need to feel the progression of all of the character arcs and relationship arcs as we go through, because I'm still a little bit uncertain about the romance subplot I added in. It's given me a lot of trouble, actually, this romantic subplot, but I think it's making the story so much better. So we're just gonna keep going full steam ahead. This line level writing, I view as my biggest weakness. And so I've been trying to improve that before going into this draft. So I wrote a poem every day for a month. And then I also tried copying other authors' writing styles, like published authors. And from that, I gleaned quite a few things that I want to keep in mind while I'm doing this next draft. So from that video, my takeaways were that I have to use all 5 of the senses, because it really does immerse you a lot more to be able to talk about not only what they're visually seeing, but also auditory, smell, touch. Touch is a big one, right? Because using all 5 senses is where writing distinguishes itself and sets it apart from things like movies or TV shows, because you're able to get so much more in the head of a character when you can literally feel what they're feeling. So I really need to take advantage of that. I'm also going to watch out for duplication across internal thoughts, actions, and dialogue. So I have a tendency to be like, the main character thought this, and then she says something that's basically also insinuating exactly what she just thought, and then maybe she's even doing an action that also backs that up. And it's like, you don't need to have that 3 times. It just slows down the pacing. So I've got to pick the best, the strongest way of communicating that and move on. The third one is show versus tell is king, especially when it comes to internal conflict. So again, I think this is also just artifact of when I'm trying to write the story for the first time. I really kind of need to explain to myself why it is the way it is. So I need to make sure that this internal conflict, I'm not just saying she was angry at this person, you know, actually showing that rather than just saying it. And I think an internal conflict, when I'm trying to describe the character's inner emotions, is when I fall back into the tell rather than show. And so the fourth one is conciseness, conciseness, conciseness. Trying to be concise kind of bleeds into a lot of these, but it's just, if something can be said once, don't say it multiple times, the duplication. Or, you know, if I have a long sentence, taking out filler words, taking out things that just drag on. You know, I want to try and get to the point as quickly as possible. And then for my fifth one, and this is more, I guess, because I'm doing a thriller, but I think that every story should have this, is that every chapter needs an intriguing cliffhanger. So this is what I was talking about, where it's like, it doesn't need to be like, oh, so-and-so is about to die. Though, you know, there's probably going to be some chapters like that. But it's just like a little bit of intrigue. So as an example, in the last video I did, I was showing you a little bit of my first chapter. So for that first chapter, my main character is going to a restaurant and she's really nervous and she has this awkward interaction and she really wants to leave, but she can't. And so the end of that chapter, I'm kind of pushing the reader to the next chapter by intriguing them with, why is she at that restaurant? Why is she putting herself in this awkward situation? And why is it worth it to her to stay there despite what she's feeling? And so you can see that's like a really small thing. It's not this mind-boggling, like someone's about to die. Anything that kind of makes you think of a question and then want to know the answer by continuing to read it is, I think, the best way to finish a chapter. So yeah, I'm halfway through chapter 3, and I have to say, so far, oh no, ooh, I had a mosquito. That's the thing. The weather's really nice, but the mosquitoes have also started to come out. But anyways, halfway through chapter 3, things are going really well. Yesterday I started chapter 2 and I just got so engrossed and pulled into the story. Like, it makes me so excited, and I can't help but think, like, if I'm getting so engrossed in this story, I'm really hoping that other people do too and they finally read it. I'm trying to sink in and enjoy it and go slow. I'm not going to speed through, because honestly, this draft may be the most important. Sometimes get away with a little bit of lazy plotting, a little bit of lazy character work, if the writing itself is intriguing, is paced well. I really want to make sure that I'm kind of firing on all cylinders with this story. So, time to keep working on chapter 3. I did not expect to enjoy writing this draft as much as I have been. I feel like I was so hesitant for draft 3 because of the line level writing that I have been worried about doing a good job with. But I've really forgotten about how fun the stage and the process can be, because the story is there. Like, I feel like we're so close to the end, and now I'm really getting to enjoy the smaller moments. I'm not as focused on the big plot events. I'm gonna try and ride this wave as much as I can, because I've been finding it so easy to motivate myself to write, and I get so engrossed and time just flies by. And I know this is not going to last forever. The draft definitely gets rougher the deeper I get into it, but so far it's been smooth sailing. As you probably could have guessed, I am not at home at the moment. This year has been so busy. So I'm currently doing my PhD, and I just feel like since January, it's been non-stop meetings, conferences, field work that just had me traveling around the state constantly, at least once a month. But this is my final trip. Like, I'm defending in August, it's official. But after this weekend, I'm free to spend my summer as I wish. Very excited for that. But this trip has also been really fun because I'm in Kodiak. I was here in January for a meeting and some field work, and that did not go well. The wind that caused my field work to get canceled or postponed is the same wind that caused my flight to get canceled. I went through security, we were sitting there, I could see the plane outside the window. But then they delayed it for 15 minutes, and then a half hour, and then another half hour, and then another half hour. Because the weather in Anchorage is just so bad There's winds up to, I think they said like 60 or 70 miles per hour. Like, it's actually ridiculous. But honestly, it just being summer and the weather being nicer and there being so much to do has just made it so much nicer, because I do have friends here, so I've been able to hang out a lot with them around doing the actual field work I'm supposed to do and around getting some writing done. But I swear the people here are so outgoing. They are constantly hiking or doing a bonfire or hanging out or going to get food or whatever, that I've really just been fitting in the writing around when I have free time. But I've been exhausted. I haven't been sleeping very much. So tonight I have a night in, and I'm just excited to sit down and really try and get a bigger chunk of editing done. Because even though this draft, it's been a lot easier to do it in smaller increments because I'm not thinking of it in this big story level. I can kind of focus even paragraph by paragraph. I just think there's so much value in really immersing yourself in the story for a period of time. I've made myself a hot chocolate. I have my draft pulled up on my computer, and we're just gonna see how much I can get going. I'm honestly so tired. If I was doing a previous draft, like draft 1 or draft 2, I don't think I'd have the headspace to do any writing tonight. But because it's this, it just feels a lot more low stakes. And because I know if I'm like not 100%, I can always like revisit the chapter again later. It just feels a lot easier and more approachable to get some work done. I am exhausted, but we finished chapter 6, so I have to color in my box. We have all of these to choose from. I don't really know what to do. What do you think? I'm gonna assume you said brown. It's been a few days since that last clip, and I have done nothing since. So I finished chapter 6, and then I immediately hit a roadblock. So basically, as I was going to sleep that night, I was thinking about my story. I was thinking about the end of chapter 6. I was feeling a little bit off about it. And then I got this brilliant idea for what I wanted to do to kind of transition better into the next chapter. But I was really tired, so I just went to sleep. And then when I woke up in the morning, I was like, oh, I had an idea, but I couldn't remember it. So then I spent the next day just trying to remember what it was before I could move on, and I couldn't. And then, yeah, one thing led to another, and then I haven't been writing since. And I still don't remember exactly how I want to transition it. And it's actually made me think of another thing I might want to add to my list of like strategies. And that is like simply variation. So we can have variation in like paragraph lengths, sentence structures, variation between having dialogue and description and other things. But I think what I also need to really focus on is variation in how chapters start and end. Because I feel like I'm kind of getting into this same rhythm of starting in a similar way with like an opening image of a location and then ending with kind of a reflection of the character moving into the next chapter. And I think it works for some chapters, but I think doing it too often, it kind of just gets boring and it makes you feel like you're reading the same thing over and over again. So because of that, I think I might have to go back and kind of just quickly revisit the 6 chapters and then see how I can move things around to fix that. I feel like I had so much momentum going into this draft. Like, I finished those first 6 chapters in like, I think 3 or 4 days. And then now it's been like a week and I haven't touched it in a few days. I also will admit I have been reading the last couple days, and I feel like when I start reading a book, if I'm enjoying it, then all I want to do is finish reading it, and it becomes hard to like focus on my own writing. But the plan is going to be to quickly revisit the first 6 chapters, make sure the endings and the beginnings of each chapter are varied, and then try and figure out this amazing idea that I had just before I went to sleep a few nights ago for the end of chapter 6, and then we'll move on. But I think this is like a fun start to draft 3, so I'm going to end this video here. Thank you for staying to the end of the video, for hanging out with me, and I will see you in the next one.